temple in Sumer. A lot of incantation bowls that she was depicted on. You get the rose symbolism that erected from her in the previous photo. If you guys noted the star on the top left, that was supposed to be Venus. If you can go back if you want to the previous slide, but she's the 8-pointed star. It was on her temples. She was also, they had 8 gates into the city, and the 8th gate was named after her. But this rose symbolism for Inanna Ishtar erected from the star representing Venus. And one thing that was, it was these, yeah, right, the 8th gate to the inner city of Babylon, right, because it just kept getting transferred over. But this is the cuneiform that you can see, or cuneiform that you can see on the far right, the reed post. There's another photo later on. I believe it's the next slide. If you want to go there. And then she's holding.
Oh, have you heard of the work of Sean Ross? He's a scholar in Europe who lived in Switzerland, and in his research on the occult, he brings up the number 8.
Ross.
He himself does not do as you've just done, which is link it to Isis, Inanna, Ishtar, the female. He should do.
Right.
But he noticed independently from his own perspective, and I just wanted to throw it in, that for some reason, the Knights Templar and the Rosicrucians and those kinds of controlling elites are absolutely obsessed with this number 8. And it turns up in their symbol, even in the symbol of the Maltese cross, is actually styled on a figure 8. So I just wanted to throw that in.
No, that's super, super significant, because even as we'll see later, the influence of Rosicrucianism and on the feminist movement that translates into Freemasonry it's huge. So I love that you brought that in, because I didn't even know that.
It's funny when you look at symbolism too, because you're talking here, this caught my attention, the rose symbolism for Inanna, it's Inanna, yeah?
Yeah, Inanna Ishtar, the same person, different names based off of the dialect that got absorbed into the cultures as, empires erected and dissolved.
I'll get to why this is interesting to me in a second. We're talking about global conspiracy stuff, but what do you think the reason for the rose symbolism was? Is it just because they look at that as some kind of feminine symbol, or is there something more to that, in your opinion?
In my opinion, goodness. There are people like Ryan Gable who have read books upon books of symbology, even going so far as the rainbow in relation to Lilith, and why that is now today's LGBTQ flag. So stuff like that. So he'd probably have a more educated opinion, because other than what you said, coming from the initial star and then to the rose, associating even the cuneiform of the reed post on the right, the reason why Inanna Ishtar is usually portrayed in her statues and stuff holding the reed post is because it's supposed to symbolize plenty, fertility, from agriculture and stuff like that. So I would do the same thing, knowing the brain. If we're going to personify people and women, which we've done since the beginning of time, because that's what the brain does, that's what we do, looking at flowers, Mother Earth, there's a reason why all cultures associate nature with a female, because of that fertility, the plenty, literally bearing. So that would be my why.
No, that's good.
Just knowing the hemisphere work. But if you have,
this is I'm not trying to this is so interesting, and we could just chalk it up to goddess symbolism, right? Like if we just keep it general, we say, hey, interesting that there's a very particular goddess symbol tradition that you can follow, and it doesn't mean it's all evil and bad, but it can be definitely warped. And it's interesting that we live in a world where people think the occult ancient world went away, and all the dynasties and all the cults and all the traditions went away, and these secret religions and stuff. And I went, well, why the hell? And Michael put me onto this we'll have to send you his talk on symbolism. It's very, very deep on this. But when I went to modern organizations, because I got really interested in like, who's this Klaus Schwab motherfucker? Who's this WEF? Who are these people? You find they're all knighted. They're all part of these dynasties and they employ these symbols.
Yeah.
And then I got into the founding of
Yeah.
the UN, right? And you find out that rabbit hole, like, holy smoke, it was started by a socialist from Denmark, a former KGB spy, and a Nazi, Kurt Weidelbaum or whatever. And then eventually you have the UN. And then you have the leader of the UN, Antonio Gutierrez. He's the head guy right now, who is the head of an organization called the Socialist International. And then I went, oh, well, let's go just check out a little on the Socialist International. So when you brought up Rose, goddess cults, check this shit out. Is it a coincidence that the symbol for the Socialist International is the Marxist fist holding the rose?
Right.
Michael, you got anything on this?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's incredible, because in Britain, the rose is for the Labour Party. The Labour Party would use the red rose. They wear it. It has multiple levels of symbolism, but it always represented world socialism. You'll see it in movies galore. Sometimes it's right up in the screen. It's meant to be subliminal, and yet they put the rose right in front of you because, again, invisible by proximity. I've seen so many movies where they're waving to you through the symbolism, going, guess who wrote this script, or guess who, funded this film, and we put our symbolism all the way through it. Really fascinating.
Incredible. We're only 2 slides in or something, Madison. This is great. Okay. Here, let me get back here.
No, it's funny that you bring that up, though, because I didn't go into it. The connection with socialism and the feminists, the Fabian Society, is huge in the feminism movement. Tons of Fabian. I just didn't get to go into it because there's so much. But even a later figure I'll talk about, there's Victoria Claflin Woodhull. She's considered Mrs. Satan. She had Claflin and Co. was one of her newspapers, and it was in that they published the first English version of the Communist Manifesto. So there is a lot of connection there.
Amazing. Okay. Is there anything else on here you want to point out, or should we move on?
Yeah, let's move on. You actually did a good segment because you were talking about the stories and these women being presented. Again, here's Inanna Ishtar. She's again standing on lions, and that goes out throughout time too. Is this lioness female power that's our feline entity supposedly, but this is some with narratives talking about rebranding and stuff like that. All of the oligarchs, the UN, WEF, they always try and give us these new myths to think of humanity around. It makes sense because narratives is how we understand existence. That's even why we have archetypes of people, because there are patterns across time. That's really what narratives are. And so Inanna has her own. She's known for her descent into the underworld. And you were talking about how all of these religions are present. This is one thing that dawned on me because I was initially raised with my parents. They were, what is it? The religion with John Nelson Darby. It's
Sensationalism?
No, starts with a P, I think. It's a branch off of Christianity. I know that doesn't help because there's so many of them.
Nelson Darby, I remember.
But the revelation is kind of what it's built around, and John Nelson Darby is the one that helped create it. But that's what I grew up on. So, they teach in the churches how Christianity, that's, the start of all religions. And then you get stories like Inanna's and Ishtar's, and there's literally the symbolism and similar stories about how she, I believe, wanted to get the knowledge of sex. So she goes with her brother into the underworld, and he gives her a fruit from the tree of sex so she can learn it. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like, Eve eating from the tree of life. Yeah. Interesting how those parallels happen. But that's sacrilegious in most, if you were to be in a church and you would connect these pagan religions to some of the origins of the Bible, that is absolutely not okay. But because we know the brain, it makes sense why it would go across time, because this is our way of personifying life to try and understand it. So just it makes sense, even though there are obviously some terrible things that happened in the pagan cultures that don't need to happen, and we're definitely a bit more civilized today. Still, just the connections between Inanna's stories that I found out, which reminded me of today's Christianity stories. But I'm told that their Christianity was where it came from first. I'm like, well, then why in 3000 BC getting similar stories? Why is that happening?
Christianity is you're
But,
on to it, Madison. Christianity, I've studied it my life, and there's many positives, of course, because of where it comes from. And when you're looking at it from a much bigger perspective than the average religious-minded person, Christianity is the new kid on the block in many ways, and is really a compilation of the ancient worlds. The cross-pollination of ideas throughout time and religion is just, everybody's like, we're the unique new standard. I see the same thing in the martial arts world because I'm deep into that. I see everybody's trying to claim originality. But really, when you get into this study, you'll realize that all of these traditions, although they all brought something unique, they all come from a very, very ancient archive that's sort of been lost to our memory.
Mhm.
And that's what I think the advantage is held by a lot of these geopolitical elites and these roundtables and whatnot, is that they know this, and the average person just simply doesn't, which is why we're still running around chasing our tails. So it's really awesome to see that you're already thinking like, wow, there's something, I see an inconsistency. I want to go look into it more. So I encourage you to keep researching that.
Yeah, well said. Speaking of, I mean, in Inanna's descent into the underworld, she's in that story, and these are all things that they're written on incantation bowls, some of the tablets, the Gilgamesh tablets, which are coming up here, and hymns that they sung. But she actually goes into the underworld in this story in particular. She dies, resurrects, and then returns back to the land of the living in some, I don't know if it was the same 3 days or something like that, but again, just this holy figure dying and then coming back to life. I was like, hey, Jesus did that. Cool. Anyway.
Well, there's a
we can go to
website
the
I'll
next.
share with you. It's one of Michael's. It's called astrotheologyzone.com. And the amount of sources that he's put on there on this exact subject is going to blow your mind. So I'll send you that link afterwards. Yeah.
Lovely. Awesome.
I'm also noticing, no problem. Also noticing, interesting, Sumerian poem, Enki and the World Order. Is that actually the name of the poem? Wow.
Yep. Yes,
That's
it
cool.
is.
So then you go, all right, when they keep saying world order, new world order, new world order, there's nothing new about it, is it?
No. I'm thank you for noticing. I saw that and went, oh my gosh, wait, am I being hyperbolic in my connections? It's
No,
like,
because you'll
nope,
find a
it's
lot
the
more
brain.
links for sure. Yeah, to the ancient world.